Before we begin today, I wish to share the happiness of crossing 10,000 subscribers on our channel. What does this data say? It's a small but important milestone, especially in today's environment when fake narratives are believed more than factual information. A big thank you. Each one of you has been patient enough to listen to my long data packed stories, sometimes intricate, sometimes borderline boring, while I was still learning how not to look like a nervous data clerk on YouTube. You have stayed, you have listened, and you have made this journey worth every late night edit. Thank you for that. Now, coming to this episode is from my archives. It's 3 years old. It was uploaded for the first time on September 22nd, 2022. Back in 2022, many people did not watch this episode. I thought it would be a good idea to start picking a few episodes from the archives and replay them, only if they still find relevance today. The data in this episode remains completely relevant because the data hasn't changed even if the propaganda has. Back then, BJP leaders, especially Yogi Adityanath, were claiming that India's Muslim population was growing so fast it would soon overtake Hindus. In this episode, I broke down the official numbers, census data, fertility rates, and long term growth trends to show that this simply is not true. In fact, the Muslim population growth has been declining faster than the Hindu growth rate for over 2 decades. This isn't about religion, it's about truth versus fear mongering. Let's revisit the facts, and I hope you find them interesting.
Namaskar and welcome to this episode of What Does This Data Say? I am Ajay Prakash. India's population and its growth rates are very simple to understand, yet they are tricky because you can pick and choose information and then put it up in a motivated manner on the social media, and then there are these lakhs of followers who will just consume that data without even blinking an eyelid. And it is not just the uneducated people who are getting affected. In fact, the educated class too does not want to even understand the logic behind such data, and they go and believe such so called facts. One of the often heard slanderous statements being made by my friends is that sooner than later, Muslims are going to overtake our country. The population as Muslims is going to outgrow that of Hindus. There could be nothing further than the truth. In fact, many experts have denied this, and if you look at the data, it is almost impossible. And yet, this Bhakt Brigade keeps going on, and I really don't know from where they get this information or the data to support such nonsensical statements. On the political side, there have been a couple of events which have gone rather unnoticed, and there should have been a debate at the national level, which did not happen. The first event was in April this year when Rakesh Sinha, a Rajya Sabha MP, withdrew his private member's bill to regulate the population. Now, this bill was introduced in 2019 and was subsequently withdrawn in 2021. Rakesh Sinha is a nominated member of the Rajya Sabha. He joined Rajya Sabha in 2018 after expiry of the term of Sachin Tendulkar. His expertise and work on RSS has established him as an RSS ideologue within the Indian culture. Subsequent to the debate in April this year, Rakesh Sinha withdrew the bill after hearing out Union Health Minister Mansukh Mandavia, who said that population control should happen by creating awareness among the people, and it should not happen by force or being made compulsory. This is the stand of the union government, which appears to be correct. Now, if you look at the history of our country, except for the brief period during emergency and the Sanjay Gandhi era when family planning was enforced on the public, never was family planning a coercive exercise. It was more through education that people in our country understood the benefits of having a small family. Now, on the other hand, in Uttar Pradesh, Yogi Adityanath has introduced a bill titled Uttar Pradesh Population Control, Stabilization and Welfare Bill 2021. This bill happens to be much more stringent than the one which was placed in the Rajya Sabha by Rakesh Sinha. In July last year, this bill was made open to public for comments. 1 week was given, and the responses were only through email. The claim is that all the emails which were received were supportive of this bill, whereas the email were never tracked. Yogi Adityanath, in his usual brash style, is pushing this bill because this bill is serving his political objectives, not the national objectives. The proposed bill plans to incentivize people to have one child with promotions, tax breaks, and public sector job security. If passed, it will also penalize people with two or more children by denying public subsidies, government jobs, and promotion. This bill has been criticized by everyone around, including the right wing Hindu groups. Now I'm going to show you a series of graphs that will demonstrate how these elements are spreading misinformation in the Indian public. Firstly, you should be aware that the world population growth is slowing down. The growth rate in the 70s was around 2%, which has been gradually falling, and last year in 2022 it has come below 1%. Currently it is around 0.83%. At this rate, the world population growth rate will become negative much before the turn of the century, and thereafter the world population will start shrinking. Now I'll take you through two sites just to show you some data. This site is macrotrends.net, and I'm showing you the India death rate from 1950 to 2022. So this is the curve here, and today our death rate stands at around 7.38 per thousand. Now our death rate is going to go up because all the youngsters, the millennials and all, as they get older, more people are going to leave this world. The next curve I'll show you is the birth rate of India. This again is from macrotrends.net, and the current birth rate of India stands at 17.163 per thousand, which is roughly equal to 1.7%. The birth rate is going to go down in the coming years, and by the turn of the century, 2100, it will be less than 1%. So how does one get the population growth rate? It's a very simple formula. The population growth of any country is defined as the birth rate minus the death rate. In India's case, I just showed you the birth rate is 1.716% currently. The death rate is 0.738. We subtract both of them. So the growth rate, the population growth rate, comes to little less than 1% at 0.978%. You can Google for India's population growth rate and you will get an answer very close to 1%. So currently India, we have a declining birth rate, an increasing death rate, and a declining population growth rate. Now it's a very simple logic that if every couple produces two babies, they will be replacing just themselves and not taking care of the death rate of the country. It has been established that the correct replacement rate is around 2.1 babies per woman. That is a birth growth rate of 2.1%, which means for every 1,000 ladies, there should be 2,100 babies produced. So the number of babies per producing lady should be over 2. Now compare this with what Yogi Adityanath is proposing in the UP population control bill. He says there should be one child per couple. He is just going to shoot himself in the foot. The national population is already on the decline, the birth rate is on the decline, and then we have such politicians bringing in totally irrational acts and bills. In the end, I'll also answer that question, that whether the Muslims are going to overtake the Hindus in our country. Have a look at the global population fact. Christians, they are in 135 countries, they occupy 65% of the global area. Their percentage of the global population is 35%, average growth rate is 0.94%. Second place is the Muslims, who are in 52 countries. They occupy 22.1% of the global area. They are 22.9% of the population, and the average growth rate is 1.81%. Third place is Buddhists. Fourth place is Hindus, with who occupy only 2.5% of the global area. And we are 18.2% of the population, and average growth rate in 2021 was 0.94%. So you can well imagine how squeezed we are here in India. Now let's see the growth summary of the religious groups within our country. In 1951, Hindus constituted 84.3% of the total population. According to 2011 census, that figure came down to 79.8%. And in 2021, it has further come down to 78.9%. The Muslims, on the other hand, who were 9.8% in 1951, have gone up over the period, and in 2021, they constitute about 15.1% of the Indian population, whereas the Christians, Sikhs, Buddhists, and Jains have remained constant over the years. So if you look at this table in isolation, probably some people will come to a conclusion that Muslims are going to overtake the Hindus. So according to the last census of 2011, the 2021 census data has still not been made public. The Hindus constituted 80% of the population, and the Muslims were 14%, and all other communities put together 6%. And again, according to the 2011 census, Hindus were growing at 1.33%, Muslims at 2.03%, and other communities were coming down at the rate of 2.4%. As a hypothetical question, if I consider the 2011 growth rate, when will Muslims take over the Hindus in our country? Have a look at this slide. Assuming that both communities keep growing at the same rate, which in itself is an absurd assumption, Muslims will overtake Hindus in the year 2259, probably around 240 years from today. Let's look at the 10-year growth rates for both Hindus and Muslims in our country. So here is the decadal growth rates from 1951 to 2011. Decadal means for every 10 years. The yellow curve is for the Hindus and the green curve is for the Muslims. The thick lines here, what you see, are a polynomial fit which I have done on the data so as to make it rather clear for the viewers. Now these two lines will meet somewhere in the future, and according to me, that will be around 2060 or thereby. At that time, the common growth rate for both communities will be around 9% on a 10-year period. A couple of things to note is that both communities are showing a declining trend in terms of growth rates. The Muslim growth rate curve tends to drop faster than the Hindus, which will be much more evident from this year onward, because in the past there was a sudden jump in the Muslim growth rate. That means many more people were born in this period, and they have to find a natural exit from this world. That is why the Muslims will now tend to grow at a lesser pace than the Hindus. So here are the summaries of today's episode. Firstly, population, is it a problem in India? No, it is not. If at all there is a problem, and which governments should start seeing, is how to increase the Indian population after 2060. Yes, Muslim population in India is currently growing faster than Hindu population, 22.3 versus 14.1 between 2011 and 2021. Muslims in India are growing less faster than the global average. The rate of growth of Muslim population in India is dropping at the same rate as the Hindu population rate. And the last point is, by the mid of this century, around 2050, the growth rates of Hindus and Muslims in India will merge, probably around a 9% figure over a 10-year period. This together will define India's growth rate at that time, and also we will be very close to the growth rate of the global population. Don't fall into the politician's trap, and neither you should look at the misinformation being churned out by the backroom boys. Thank you for watching this episode. I'll meet you again next week with some other data. Till then, goodbye and namaskar.